It's now time for our main event with your host, Chris Tetrold Blaine. Welcome to Once Upon a Turnbuckle.
So welcome to another very special episode of Once Upon a Turnbuckle, and I must admit the boyhood wrestling fan in me is buzzing at the minute to be talking to this next guest. I'm so grateful for him coming on. Welcome to the show, Mike Duke the Dumpster Droese.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Been another very busy week. It's winding down. Sunday will be my day of rest. Finally, after a very long week of working and doing wrestling-related stuff and podcasts and interviews and sending out merchandise boxes today. I got like 20 I did today, and
wow.
Which I'm very grateful for. But yes, it's been a very busy week, and I'm happy, but I'm ready for a day of rest.
Good. Yeah, I think we all are at this stage of the week. So, I think all the listeners obviously will know who you are. They'll recognise you certainly from the mid '90s, from the new generation period and the WWF, as have I. But just to kick off, so rewind back from there. Where and how did you discover wrestling yourself and get into it? Decide it was something you wanted to do.
I discovered wrestling in Florida. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I was a transplant from California. I was born there, but we moved to Florida early on. I was about 4. My dad was in the military. Anyway, I was watching championship wrestling from Florida from the late 70s into the early 80s and beyond, and with Gordon Soley and Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan and Blackjack Mulligan. And so that's where I grew up watching as a fan. And then I just remember the year they had the first WrestleMania, and they started hyping it, because before that point we didn't see much of Vince McMahon's TV in Florida, because this was right before he took over the country and then the world. But I just remember they were hyping the WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania, and my dad took me to see it in an arena in Miami, the Miami Beach Convention Center, where they played it on a big screen TV on closed circuit television. This was way before any pay-per-view, and you could get any pay-per-views in your house.
Yeah.
You had to go to a public place and watch it on closed circuit television. And I just remember watching that event, and it was just so different. And all the hype behind everything, and every match meant something pretty much. And especially the hype behind the Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, and Roddy Piper, Orndorff tag match with Cyndi Lauper and everything. And there was this huge crossover to pop culture. And just that, the energy behind that is what made me want to become a professional wrestler. As a matter of fact, it was during the WrestleMania 1 closed circuit telecast. I actually stood up and turned and looked at my dad and said, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. And from that point on is when I started pursuing it. And I was still in high school. What
was your parents' reactions to that? Were they all for it, or did they kind of think, oh, it's just a bit of a phase, bit of a pipe dream?
No, they always supported everything I did, especially my dad. He always pushed me to really work hard and chase my dreams. And he loved the fact that I wanted to be a professional wrestler, because he encouraged it. In fact, he was a large part of the reason that I actually got started. First, because he took me to see WrestleMania 1, and then second, when I was a wrestler in high school on the wrestling team, we had the championship wrestling from Florida wrestlers come and do a show in our gym as a fundraiser for the wrestling team. Cool. And we got to work security, walking them to the ring, like Lex Luger, Barry Windham, Dusty Rhodes. And I was too scared to go in the locker room and talk to the wrestlers and ask about learning, ask about a school. Yeah. My dad went in there and started bugging them, and found out where there was a wrestling school in Miami for me to start training at, which is what he did. And I went and started training shortly thereafter with a guy named Bobby Wales down in Opelika, Florida, right outside of Miami. So yeah, my dad was very instrumental in pushing me because he knew that's what I wanted to do, but he also knew I was a chicken shit and I wouldn't ask for help. So he took it upon himself to make it happen.
And why not? Why not? I remember it was always a bit of a dream of mine. But there's over here in the UK, there's very little, or was back then anyway, very little avenue to kind of pursue, especially where I was living. So I was always kind of watching the guys on screen, very envious. But you know, this is cool being able to talk to you about this and getting an idea of sort of how it all starts and how it all begins. So from when you then started training, sort of how long were you in training before you started sort of not only your debut but then started wrestling not regularly?
Well, honestly, it only took me about 6 months.
Okay.
6 months of training, and I had my first match because I was in really good shape from high school wrestling. I was still in really good shape. I came right out of high school wrestling. So it was just a matter of learning how to do the moves and take bumps and learn how to wrestle in the ring and do that style. And I picked it up really fast. And my first match, I wrestled for the AWA. Actually, they came to Florida, and it was the AWA right after Vern Gagne sold it.
Right.
And the Savoldis were running it. It was ICW, AWA, and they still had a lot of the stars from AWA. They had Larry Zbyszko, they had Nick Bockwinkel, they had Boris Zukov, they had Sheik Adnan Al-Kaisi, and many of those guys. And they came to Florida and did a few shows and did some TVs. And I know it's lost somewhere. I wish I could find it. I was a skinny 18-year-old kid, and I wrestled I think I was Mean Mike Casey.
Okay.
It was either Mean Mike Casey or I was the surfer boy Harry Race. I'm pretty sure I was Mean Mike Casey. And I wrestled, and I did one TV show for them. And I just remember because I hit the guy in the balls, and Mario Savoldi screamed at me for doing that on TV. But that was on ICW AWA television, and I wish I could find it. But that was my second match. The
Wow.
TV match was my second. The first was the night before at the Davie Rodeo Arena. And, I just remember Nick Bockwinkel yelling at me because I was talking to the guy I was going to wrestle outside behind the locker room where the fans could see us.
Uh-huh.
Was not respecting kayfabe at all.
No,
And,
big no-no back then. Yeah.
And it was still – kayfabe was still the deal. And so he was kind of nice about it, but he was kind of yelling at us about it at the same time. It was really interesting. But I felt like an idiot. So I learned a harsh lesson. But, yeah, it was 6 months, and I went and wrestled. Yeah.
Impressive. Where did where and when did the garbage man gimmick come about? Because I know you had that before you got to WWF. So.
Yeah, I was going to college at the University of Miami. And I was wrestling here and there part-time, and I was in a fraternity at college. And the fraternity brothers, my friends, would come up with all these goofy names for me. And they came up with the name Rocco Gibraltar, one of my fraternity brothers. And I liked that name, and I knew I always wanted to use it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So one day when I was getting close to finishing college, I was almost finished with my bachelor's degree, and I was just kind of sitting at home thinking, what could I do with the name Rocco Gibraltar that would have a character that Vince McMahon would be interested in?
Okay.
And I came up with the G-Man, Rocco Gibraltar, and I decided it was going to be the Garbage Man. The Garbage Man, Rocco Gibraltar. And from that point forward, for about the next year or year and a half, I wrestled in Florida as the Garbage Man Rocco Gibraltar, and I taped everything I did and stored all the matches and saved everything I did in with the expectation of putting together a promo package and a tape to either send up to Vince,
Mm-hmm.
or I was going to drive around the country and give them to every promoter I could, because there were still a few territories left in those days.
Yeah.
And that was the plan. But that's how the Garbage Man came about.
Cool. So you had Vince McMahon in mind when you came up with that. That's quite cool to know.
Yeah, because you knew he had the cartoonish characters, and he always had one or two blue collar kind of gimmick that people got behind, that the common people could get behind.
Yeah.
Like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan or a Hillbilly Jim or a Dusty Rhodes when he was there, the common man.
Yeah.
So that's what I was aiming for, and
Cool.
that's the way he saw it, and that's the way he brought me in.
Cool. So it brings us quite nicely then onto the bit that I really wanted to talk to you about, obviously because this is where I, as a sort of 10, 11-year-old, around about the time it wasn't until then that I got satellite TV over here, so I was a bit out of the loop. But that around 94, 95 was when I started watching WWF on a regular basis. So I would see guys like yourself, on the TV a lot. So just kind of. How then did the gig with WWF come about? Was it just as simple as was it out of you sending the stuff on, or was there somebody else involved sort of getting you in there, or how?
I didn't know anybody really. I kind of knew Luna Vachon. She was there at the time, but no. Okay. I've told this story before, but I was working part-time at night as a night watchman at a beach club, a private beach club, where people that own homes on this island were they could come out there during the day in a private place and lay in the sun. And they had me watching it overnight because people were coming and breaking into the kitchen and stealing stuff. So I had a job. I had a nice part-time job while I was finishing college. Anyway, as I was getting ready to graduate and I had my promo packages ready and I was getting prepared to just pack up my car and drive all over the country, I was sitting at that job, which I had already given my notice. I was getting ready to leave, and I was reading the paper. And there was an article in the Miami Herald about the steroid scandal and about how Hulk Hogan had just jumped to WCW and talking about the steroid scandal with Hulk Hogan. And then the last sentence in the article said they were at a convention at the Miami Beach Convention Center, the same place I watched WrestleMania 1, a place, it was called the NatP Convention for TV executives, where they would go to sell shows and TV time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last sentence was Vince McMahon, who was also in attendance, had no comment. And I realized Vince McMahon's in Miami, Florida right now.
Wow.
And literally the next day I was walking in, and what I had done was a member of this private beach club was a TV executive. Right. So he gave me his credentials to wear around my neck, and I wore a suit. And I just walked right in, and I walked right up to Vince McMahon. And I told him who I was, and I told him I wanted a job. And we talked for about 30 or 40 seconds, and he asked me a couple questions, and then I got out of there. And he had J.J. Dillon call me about a week later to come up for a tryout.
There you go. So you got to appreciate guts when, you're gutsy enough to just walk up to someone like Vince McMahon and say.
The funny thing is, it wasn't guts. I didn't even give myself time to get scared. It was literally overnight. I just remember I said, I need to get in there. And I called one of my friends and one of the local wrestlers, and he gave me, this guy, Willie Gonzalez, he gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, if you see Vince McMahon by himself, you better jump on him because he won't be alone for long. And sure enough, I walked in there right when it opened at 10 a.m. And there was this big group of TV guys like Pat Patterson and all the agents and the Kevin Dunns. They were all in a big group, right? And Vince McMahon was over here by himself drinking a cup of coffee. And I walked right to him.
Brilliant.
And I didn't give myself time to get scared or talk myself out of it. I just did it. And then afterwards, I freaked out a little bit. Our ride home, I couldn't believe what I had just done, but I just did it. And,
it paid off. And it paid off. So the first sort of big angle that you were involved in was with Jerry the King Lawler. Did you have any interaction with Jerry Lawler before that? Did you know him from anywhere else, or whose idea was it to start you off with him?
It was the office's idea, probably Vince's. I did not know Jerry before that. We literally spoke the first time right before, actually, the very first spot we did was on my debut. I debuted on Superstars versus a guy named Mike Bell. And I came out, and Jerry Lawler was standing there like he wanted to interview me. And the joke was he put a clothespin on his nose to say that I stunk. And then I took my garbage can and dumped trash on top of his head.
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, and that set up the deal for Monday Night Raw, the live King's Court. And it was before the King's Court was the first time I spoke to Jerry about any of it. And we were talking about the King's Court. And he was supposed to not let me in the ring and not let me talk very much. And I was going to get fed up and just leave. and he would jump me from behind, right? That was the deal. Well, he asked me if I thought it would be good if he hit me and jumped me from behind, but then grabbed the garbage can and hit me with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, absolutely, because I knew that was going to be some good heat.
Yeah.
And we asked the agent in charge of that segment was, I believe, Jack Lanza. And we asked him, and he said, screw it. It's live TV. Just do it. So I'm the brand new guy, and I'm taking this advice, and I go out there, and we do it. And if you watch it, the tape of it, when it was on live TV, Jerry Lawler comes running behind me and hits me. And I turn around like this, and I turn to him, and he picks up the can and goes, wham! Yeah. And as soon as he hits me in the head, the camera shoots to a far angle. They wouldn't show it up close anymore because they freaked out about it. Kevin Dunn in the truck freaked out. So we did the deal. He beat me up. I think they showed it later in a freeze frame. They wouldn't show the actual thing. Yeah. And then we got in the back, and Shane McMahon ran up to me. He's like, what the hell happened? I said, they wanted to do the deal with the can. I thought it was a good idea. And I don't know. And they were not happy. They said it was too violent. So then they made Gorilla Monsoon and Macho Man, who were doing the commentary for Raw at that time, come on live TV and apologize for what everybody had just seen. And they said, you'll never see that again on this TV. And so immediately a big bucket of ice water is poured on the heat of the angle. And then the next week they had Jerry Lawler do a pre-taped thing on Superstars where he apologized, and it was like a big joke and stupid. He's, he didn't want to apologize, but they made him apologize. And I was just, I didn't know much at the time, but I knew enough to know that was not good for what we were trying to do. And we ended up not even getting a pay-per-view match out of it.
I was going to say, because it looked like it was building towards something, and then just seemed
should have been something big, but they just kind of squashed it.
The way they dealt with that, though, I would say it made it seem more real. The fact that they were having to apologise for it, they were quite shocked by it. In a way, I suppose, gives a lot of heat to Jerry Lawler for doing something that they would have to apologise for. But
then they took him and put him with Doink the Clown.
Yeah.
And that's where all that heat went. They didn't put it on, in a match with me. We did a Monday Night Raw match where I won by count out, and it set up his angle with Doink the Clown. That's all it was, So we could have got a lot more mileage out of it, I think.
It's a shame that. Yeah, I mean, the next big thing I think I remember you for when I was growing up certainly was the Royal Rumble '96. When your program started with Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, as he was then. So that, for me, kind of came out, and it was even though the match was on the free for all, it was on the free bit, it wasn't on the main show. It put you at number 30 in the Royal Rumble match, so that was quite a surprise because that's quite a spot to have, and you weren't involved at the time in any sort of major angle or anything. So again, was there any sort of build up to that? Was that a last minute decision? Was there any sort of plans for something bigger to come of that?
After the Jerry the King Lawler thing, they just kind of didn't do anything with me. They just put me off, and I was losing to any, I lost to all the heels. I lost to any new heels that came in. I was just doing jobs, basically.
Yeah.
And they weren't putting me on TV very often anymore either. And it was getting to the point where, as '96 came along, my contract was up, and I wasn't happy. And I was just not happy. And it ended up being a situation. It's funny because the point where I chose to take a stand, a new guy came in named the Ringmaster. And at the
I was going to ask you about this actually, because I've heard a comment lately about
at the last minute they decided, all right, we'll put Duke in there to do a job for his first job, his first TV match. But my contract was up, and that was the moment that I decided, you know what, that I'm tired of this. And Bret Hart I was riding with Bret, and he kind of told me I should refuse to do it. And I went and talked to Bruce Pritchard and said, I don't know what you guys want me to do, but it's obviously not going to do anything with me. And he ran and talked to Vince and came back and told me I didn't have to do it. And that was, I think, what they did. Well, first of all, I went and talked to Steve and told him it's nothing personal. It has nothing to do with you. It's just they've been killing me. And of all the people in the world, he understood because WCW had killed him before he left.
Yeah.
And we became good friends after that. But the office realized my contract was up. And they figured, we better give him something. So they gave me the angle with Triple H.
Right. Okay.
And the free-for-all match and the build-up to the in-your-house match. And there was a lot of talk about turning me heel during this time as well.
Okay.
And I said I wanted to change my appearance. And that's where Jim Ross came up with the idea of having Triple H cut my hair off. And that way I could have a different look when I eventually turned heel.
Yeah.
Of course, they never turned me heel. But that was the angle. I cost him the number 30 spot, Triple H, the number 30 spot in the free-for-all match for the Royal Rumble. And he came back out on Superstars the next week and jumped me and cut my hair off. Yeah. And that set us up for the angle. And that was basically, I think, they were pacifying me to get me to re-sign the one-year deal rollover.
Right.
Because then after Triple H, I went right back to doing what I was doing before, losing to the new heels that came in. So,
You mentioned about potentially turning heel on that. I've heard a rumor. Was there ever any truth in you possibly becoming part of the $1 Million Corporation?
Yeah. That's how it was presented to me. I think it may have been before Steve came in, and they were talking about making me like this protege of the $1 Million Man. They were just going to completely switch me from being a dirty, poor, old garbage man to a super rich, again, the prodigy of the $1 Million Man. And they even did a magazine article that kind of hinted at DiBiase kind of scouting me and watching me. And they even did some stuff on TV where I started finding money in the garbage. And then it just kind of died out. They just didn't do it.
They see I 95 to me is quite a seminal year. Like I say, it's when I really started to watch it regularly and keep up with everything. And I know 95, maybe 96 isn't held in much high regard with some fans because particularly WWF was very gimmick heavy. But like you say, I don't think they tease storylines and they seem to die out very, very quickly. It's very difficult as a fan to see sort of where they were going and why one week you're seeing some superstars being built up or something and then you're not seeing them again for a few weeks. So confusing, I would imagine, for you, Bill.
Yeah, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on. I mean, they were really trying hard to get Diesel over and Shawn Michaels over and Razor Ramon over. Razor not so much. He was more on the IC belt run, but they were trying a lot of different things with Diesel and Shawn, and it just seemed like every once in a while when something was started with somebody else, it kind of got squashed, and they were trying different things with these guys, They were really trying hard to get them over as champions and all that stuff. I mean, at one point, Diesel was the champ, Shawn was the IC champ, and they together were the tag team champs. I thought that was the most ridiculous freaking thing I'd ever seen.
It's like having the Four Horsemen all over again. They just have everything.
But it's two guys. Yeah. It leaves a whole roster of guys that mean nothing. Yeah. But it was just weird to me.
Yeah.
But that seemed to be what was going on at that time because business was down and they were really trying to find things that work. And you're exactly right. They weren't sticking with things for the long run. They were just kind of...
Again, from a fan's point of view, it was difficult to sort of stay on that channel when over on the other side, they were going through a tricky period at the end of 95, but then 96, they really started to put some stuff together. So, maybe you could see...
Yeah, it was really interesting when Nitro started. The first few weeks, Bruce Pritchard came running in the locker room and telling us the ratings numbers, how we were winning. And it was like the first couple of weeks that Nitro was on, he's like, we did this and they did that, and then he just stopped showing up. He didn't come in anymore because obviously we were getting beat, and that's when they started really beating us. So I think in some ways there was some, I don't want to say they were panicking, but they were just trying to figure stuff out, and they weren't sticking with stuff very long either.
So when when your run there came to an end, how did life change for you? Did you have other stuff that you went out and did straight away, or was it difficult to kind of sort of pick up from that?
When I left WWF, I really didn't have anything. I was, it's interesting because I had really kind of gotten heavy into taking painkillers. I got hurt during the run with Triple H. I hurt my back in a match, a house show in a Meadowlands Arena. I hurt my lower back, and I was right in the middle of that feud. I wasn't going to stop working. That was the only pay-per-view I was going to get to be in. Yeah. And so I started taking painkillers. So by the time I was winding down, I was having interactions with Vince I was just saying stupid crap, like, if you're not going to use me better than this, send me home. And never thinking for a minute they would call my bluff. But basically, he sent Briscoe up to me one day at TV and said, Vince said you can go ahead on home. And I just remember, like, it's over. And I went home. And, up until that point with the drugs and everything, there was some control because you had to be somewhere with the WWF. You had to be on a schedule. You had an itinerary. You had to be in a certain town. You had to get a rental car and a hotel and be at the show and train. You had a schedule. I went home. I had no schedule, and I was doing drugs, and there was nothing. I think I started bouncing in the bars again because that was the only job that was kind of conducive to me being a drunk and a drug addict at the time. And that's kind of what I fell into. So, that's what happened. And I slowly really started to just disappear from everything. Yeah.
So did you you carry on wrestling around about that time, or did you sort of step away from it?
I was doing some stuff with the local promotion that I worked for before I went to work for Vince, Sunshine Wrestling Federation. They were doing some stuff. At one point, I bought a ring, which was stupid. I bought a ring, and I was training some people. At one point, we had MVP come through the school. Okay. I don't take any credit for training him, though. This guy, Alex Gibson, trained him. Soul Man Alex G trained him. But in my school, that's where he started. But I had a ring, and I was going to train guys for this company, but the drug use was so bad I couldn't even keep it together, and they ended up firing me. This little local promotion fired me. They were working with a TV station, so I was actually getting a salary, but they ended up firing me. So that's when things really went bad. After that, I just sold them the ring, and I left, and that's when I really disappeared.
So sort of 20 odd years. 20 odd years after leaving the WWF, and now, how is life now? You sort of, what are you up to? What's your direction? And do you miss it?
No, I don't miss the wrestling business. Now, you see, I got clean first time in 2003. I moved up to Tennessee. My family moved me up here and put me in rehab. And I got clean, and I kind of went back to getting my life together. I became a school teacher and things like that. In about 2009, I had a real serious foot injury and made the mistake of starting to take pills again. And everything fell apart again and got really bad to the point where I was running around with people I shouldn't have, and I got into legal trouble, and I got busted. And got 2 felonies on my record for selling pills. And I lost the teaching career, and things got really bad. And during that whole court process, as part of my plea deal, I took this very strict program it's called drug court is what it's called. It's like really strict probation and drug treatment at the same time. But the thing was, I was willing to do whatever it took. I was ready to change. So that wasn't difficult for me. Yeah. But I went through that drug court program, and I got busted in 2013. I went through the program. I graduated in 2015. I was on probation until November 21st of last year. I finished everything. And when I finished the drug court program, they asked me to work for them. Because I had done so well, and they could tell I was taking it seriously. Yeah. So now I work for the drug court program. I work with individuals that are trying to get clean and try to just change their lives and not continuously go in and out of jail and prison anymore. And that's what I do. And I'm happy where I'm at now. Another thing that happened in 2013, about the same time I got busted, I lost my left foot because of the foot injury, and I was doing drugs. I was doing drugs and not getting it fixed. It got infected, and I had to have it amputated. So I don't have a left foot. I walk around on a prosthetic.
Wow.
So that's been a challenge. But you see, all of these things were steps in the path that got me to where I am now. And now I am very blessed to be able to help people going through the same things that I went through. I have a lot of lived experience and knowledge about the process.
Yeah.
And I've even started a podcast called Road to Recovery, where we talk about a lot of different recovery issues, drugs and alcohol, along with other addictions and other problems that people face. So I'm doing a lot now in this field because it also helps me to stay clean and stay on my feet and not make the mistakes anymore. So I'm in a good place now. I'm happy. And you asked me if I miss the business. I don't miss the wrestling business because now I've had this renewed relationship with the wrestling fans. It's been unreal. Through social media. They started to get in touch with me a couple years ago. And I've told stories, and like I said, I do the podcast, and I do a lot of live stuff, and I interact with the fans, and it's been a blast. Yeah. And I'm just having fun with that part of it now, interacting with the fans. And I could care less really about the wrestling business. I don't ever want to be involved. I'm certainly not going to wrestle ever again.
No.
So there was a long period of time where I regretted the way I left the wrestling business, but now I don't. In fact, I've realized if I had stayed there, and the Attitude Era came rolling in right after I left. Yeah. And they stopped drug testing the way that they did when all those guys started dying. Yeah. I probably would have been one of the dead guys, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's the way I look at it. I'm happy where I'm at now. It's been a blast. And I'm enjoying interacting with the fans again.
And that's really where I led to. I just got in touch, reached out with to you over your Facebook page, and I was so grateful when you responded. I'm so grateful for this chance to be able to talk to you. Like I say, I grew up watching yourself. You were on most weeks that I was watching when I was that age. I was really getting immersed in it. So this is a real honor to be able to talk.
I appreciate you saying that. A lot of people are looking back with fondly at those years now, the new generation era, the golden era, the post-golden era, the new generation era. People are looking back fondly now, and they are looking up a lot of the wrestlers of that era, and it's just created this whole new scene of interaction with a lot of these wrestlers who kind of disappeared for a long time. Yeah. I called that the dark ages of wrestling because a lot of us, we didn't make much headway in the business. We were here a little bit a short time, and then we were gone. And
but you still got the stories to tell. That's what's good for
they seem to enjoy the stories. And I certainly pull no punches, and a lot of the times I'm the one that looks stupid in my stories because I did a lot of stupid stuff, and I freely admit that, and it's okay. But I'm having a lot of fun.
That's what makes the memories. So I'm wrapping up to the sort of final bit. I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. As fans do, we like to do a little bit of fantasy booking, so I'll get you involved. Thinking back to your original run, sort of 94 to 96, if you could book yourself into a WrestleMania back then with anyone that was around then, who would you have picked? What sort of match would it have been?
I begged Vince McMahon for quite a while to let me work an angle with the Hog Farmer.
Oh, okay.
I thought that would be a perfect fit. We could have done, he ended up having a hog pen match with Triple H, and then the New Age Outlaws ended up having a dumpster match. Well, me and Henry Godwin could have had a dumpster match, hog pen match, all of the above. And we could have tore the house down. We wrestled a few times, and it was amazing to work with him. I think that would have been a real good fit. And then maybe we could have I could have turned heel, and we could have been a tag team, before they brought Phineas in. Yeah. We could have been a tag team,
that would have been quite cool, actually.
Yeah. So that's what I would have thought of. That's what I would have done.
With your sort of thinking back with your angle with Triple H, that's what I thought was quite believable, even in that era for that, is because your characters were polar opposites. You could actually see that there would be heat there. So with you and Henry Godwin, yeah, you could see that there would be a reason to get involved, either side, you know, pairing up or against each other. So I would have liked to have seen that. It's yeah. Finally, as well, any just a real broad one. Any memories from back then? Any like funny stories, you know, that stick with you these days? You know, backstage stuff.
We just always had a blast. Austin always says those were the Wild West days, and in a lot of ways that's true. I just remember many a nights riding up and down the roads with Steve Austin in a crappy little rental Ford Taurus that we barely fit in, with a case of beer and a cooler in the back seat, blasting music, listening to stuff like Rage Against the Machine and other music, and just having a blast talking about wrestling, coming up with crazy ideas. That was fun. You know, at one point, me and Austin came up with an idea. We were going to start a faction of like skinheads. He was going to be the leader, but it wasn't going to be like a racist thing. But we just would happen to beat up certain groups of people, and you know, during that, it was way ahead of its time. And we actually took that to Vince, and he kind of looked at us like we were crazy. But then later, he came up with DOA and the Nation of Domination and Boricuas and all that stuff. Yeah. But that was our plan. But yeah, we would come up with stupid ideas like that. And we had the dumbest jokes between us that we just constantly laughed about that nobody else got. He used to leave stupid messages on my machine at home about how a freshwater catfish is a great pet to have. I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But it was just crazy. But we had fun. You know, it was all in good fun. And guys like Owen Hart, man, was always a blast to be around. He always made it fun to work in that place, even when you were unhappy with your position. Yeah. Guys like Owen Hart and Austin and people like that made it fun. You know, we always had fun. So those are the times that I remember most.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll open the floor to you for the last couple of minutes. So anything that you're doing at the moment that you want to promote, or you know, where people can keep up to date with what you're doing, you know, feel free.
The big thing right now is my Facebook page. It was my private Facebook page, but now it's open to the public. It's Mike Droese. That is where you pretty much find everything. And I am currently doing a podcast on Friday afternoons at 6 p.m. Eastern time called Road to Recovery. I'm doing it with a guy named Avi Klein. Avi Klein, I call him the new godfather of podcasting, because not only does he have my podcast, Road to Recovery, he also has a podcast with Paul Roma, with Del Wilkes, the Patriot, with Ray Lloyd, Glacier, with Bill DeMott, Hugh Morris, and with Don Morocco as well. Did I say Paul Roma? Paul Roma's in there too. Yeah. He's got podcasts with all those guys. He's running podcasts almost every day of the week and twice on Friday. So, and it's on all of our Facebook pages, and it's live. So if you, at 6 p.m. Eastern time, if you came to my Facebook page, you would see Road to Recovery, the podcast, being streamed live. That is the big thing I'm doing right now. Of course, everybody's got appearances lined up, but they all seem to be getting canceled still because of COVID. So it's a hit or miss deal with any of these appearances I've been signed up for. Everything has been pushed all the way out to past October at this point. We're hoping for some October stuff to come through, but we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, mainly come check out the podcast, Road to Recovery.
There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, I urge all the listeners to reach out to that. I'll definitely be going back and checking out all of those as well. I didn't realize
all the old episodes. Just scroll down on my Facebook page, and they're still sitting there. You can go watch them.
Cool. I got into Conrad Thompson's podcast, and he's obviously got quite a few going on. But I think Avi Klein sounds like the one to follow then, because all the ones, especially from the era that I like to talk about. So
yes,
cool, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. So you know, all the best with everything. Thanks for coming on and sharing your stories. You know, it's so good to hear that you're doing well. You know, an inspiration for what you've gone through, what you're doing now. So, you know, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. I really appreciate you having me on your show. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
No problem, mate. Chat again soon. Cheers, mate. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.